I wasn't supposed to be in that neighborhood. The only reason I turned onto Meadow Ridge Lane was because my crew had finished early at the east site, and I wanted to check on the landscaping near my son-in-law's place. It was an impulse. But that 5-minute detour would split my life into before and after. I was halfway past Colin's house, the same one I'd helped him and my daughter furnish last summer, when something parked in the driveway made my stomach twist. A pearl-white Infiniti SUV. My wife, Celeste's car, the same one I'd helped her pick out last winter. It was supposed to be in our garage. I pulled over, killing the engine. My mind worked quickly, scanning explanations. Maybe she was dropping something off? Maybe Lena had asked her to bring over something from our place. Then I remembered. Just 10 minutes earlier, I'd called Lena to ask if she wanted to grab dinner. "Sorry, Dad," she'd said cheerfully. "Not home. Colin's there, though. He's working on some contracts for a client." So, why was Celeste here? I stepped out of my truck, walking toward the side of the house with slow, measured steps. My boots crunched softly over the grass. When I reached the bay window, I stayed in the shadows, my breath shallow. The window was cracked open. Inside, Celeste was sitting on the sectional sofa, legs crossed, wine glass in hand. Colin leaned against the fireplace, sleeves rolled up, his tie hanging loose around his neck. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, and then they started talking. "When the divorce goes through," Colin said, "you'll have access to half the estate. That includes the investment portfolio, the lake house, and, of course, the company shares." Celeste twirled the wine in her glass. "And you're sure the spousal support's guaranteed under the new rules?" "As long as we document irreconcilable differences and show the financial dependency angle, yes. You'll get monthly support indefinitely, plus half of what was earned during the marriage." My heart went cold. 24 years. That's how long Celeste and I had been married. I thought I knew her. I thought she loved me. Now I was listening to her and my son-in-law map out my financial execution. "And he's never suspected?" Colin asked, walking toward the coffee table where a thick manila folder sat. Celeste shrugged. "Not once. He's too busy running construction sites and thinking I still care about building a future together. I started collecting the documents last fall. Asset logs, bank details, property titles, it's all in there." "You've done well," Colin said with a smirk. "Soon we'll have it all." I wanted to scream. I wanted to burst through that window and drag them both into the street. But I didn't. Instead, I reached into my jacket pocket, pulled out my phone, and hit record. Because this wasn't going to end in shouting. This wasn't going to end the fool. This was going to end my way. I didn't remember driving home. The streets blurred past the windshield, a swirl of motion and noise. My hands were stiff on the wheel, my chest tight as if someone had reached inside and pulled everything out. Hope, pride, even memory. I parked outside our house. My house, the one I'd designed board by board back in '99. Every tile, beam, and doorknob had been hand-picked with Celeste. At the time, I believed we were building a legacy, a sanctuary. Now, it looked like a stage. Inside, everything was still. I stood in the foyer for a full minute, listening to the silence. Usually, Celeste would be in the kitchen around this time, flipping through recipe books she never used or ordering dinner from one of her favorite places. But today was different. She wouldn't be back for a few hours. I stepped into the living room, and my eyes fell on our wedding photo above the fireplace. Celeste, in a champagne silk gown. Me, 20 years younger, awkward in a rented tuxedo, grinning like I'd just won the lottery. Back then, she worked as a receptionist at an architecture firm. I was 38 and running a construction startup out of my garage. We met at a client appreciation night. I cracked a stupid joke about concrete density, and she laughed like it was the cleverest thing she'd ever heard. That laugh had stuck with me for months. We had dinner at a small Greek place the following Friday. Talked until they kicked us out. She listened to me talk about my dream. Monroe Builders, a full-service construction firm focused on sustainable residential developments. You don't build houses, she'd said, smiling. You build homes. I proposed 6 months later. Now her voice from that night at Collins kept playing in my mind. He still thinks I care about building a future together. I walked over to the built-in shelves lining the far wall. Baby pictures of Lena, her third-grade soccer trophy, family vacation photos. Every frame looked like a lie. Our daughter had grown up thinking her parents were an unshakable team. She didn't know her husband and mother were plotting together to dismantle her father's life. One signature at a time. I sat down in the worn leather recliner Celeste always said was too bulky for the living room. She hated that chair. Said it clashed with the minimalist aesthetic she was going for. I never moved it. I'd built too many dreams sitting in that chair, but I wasn't going to be the dreamer anymore. That night, I opened my laptop. My financial files were there, meticulously organized. Angela always insisted on digital backups, but I preferred hard copies. Now I knew why she cared so much about keeping records. But there was one thing she didn't know about. The private investments I'd made starting in 2016. Trust funds, overseas accounts, and business stakes, hidden behind shell companies. All legal, all declared, but all off the books as far as she was concerned. She'd been playing chess with half the board, and I wasn't going to tell her otherwise. By sunrise, my mind was clearer than it had been in years. I hadn't slept. I didn't need to. Instead, I'd spent the night reviewing documents, cross-referencing accounts, and making a list of everything Celeste thought she owned, and everything she never knew existed. After Lena left for college, Celeste and I began drifting, though I didn't see it then. At first it was subtle. She became more interested in what the neighbors were doing, who had a new pool, who upgraded their kitchen. Then came the comparisons. Did you see the Cooper's place? They added a wine cellar. We could afford Aspen if you'd just expand your staff. I mean, how much does your foreman really need to make? It wasn't malicious, not at first. But somewhere along the way, appreciation turned into entitlement. The woman who once praised my ambition began to resent the time it took away. She stopped asking about projects. She stopped coming to company dinners. I chalked it up to aging, to stress, to routine. But the truth, she had already moved on, mentally, emotionally, maybe even physically. Then came Colin. He and Lena got married 2 years ago, a bright young attorney with a talent for financial litigation. I welcomed him like a son. I gave him a car, helped them buy their first home. I even brought him in to consult on a property lawsuit we were handling through Monroe Builders. He and Celeste bonded quickly. I figured it was just good chemistry, common interests, the same sharp wit. Now I knew better. Sometime in the last 12 months, they had shifted from friendly banter to covert planning. And while I was working 60-hour weeks, trying to secure legacy contracts for the company, they were laying the foundation to bleed me dry. That's when I called Marcus. Marcus Dell was my accountant and confidant. He had helped me establish financial shields a decade ago when Monroe Builders took off. At the time, I thought it was just good business sense. Now, it was the one thing keeping me in control. They've got the basics, I told Marcus. But they don't know about the equity pools, the offshore trusts, or the silent shares in the Timberland project. Marcus whistled. And they won't, unless someone leaks it. But you should move fast. If she files before you make adjustments, you'll have to freeze everything for legal review. I already started the paperwork, I said. Just tell me what else I need. For the next 6 hours, my home office turned into a war room. I pulled the files, the real ones, the deeds that Celeste never asked about, the contracts she never read, the accounts she had no legal access to. Meanwhile, I asked Donovan, my PI, to dig into Celeste's recent activity. What he found made my blood boil. She had transferred over $60,000 into a private savings account, shared with Colin. They weren't even trying to hide it. She'd used her personal email address. Some of the transfers were made from my own accounts. They'd been preparing for a different life, a different future, one that didn't include me. But they underestimated one thing. I don't go down quietly. That afternoon, I went back to doing what I do best, working with my hands. There's something healing about being on a job site. The smell of fresh-cut lumber, the distant clang of steel, the sound of measured progress. It grounds you, reminds you that no matter how much people may try to undo your life, structure is still possible. I visited our commercial build in Oakview. It was a hospital expansion project, biggest one we'd ever taken on. My foreman, Rick, noticed something was off. "You good, boss?" I nodded, just thinking about the next phase. But my mind wasn't on plumbing installations or HVAC timelines. It was on the confrontation that was coming. Celeste had no idea I'd overheard them, and I intended to keep it that way. Not yet. At 5:52 p.m., I got a call. It was her. "Hey, I'll be home late. Stuck at the planning committee." My jaw clenched. She wasn't at a committee. She was likely still with Colin, plotting. But I answered smoothly, "Take your time." When I got home, I sat at the kitchen table, stared at the glossy marble surface she insisted we import from Italy. The table had cost nearly as much as a truck. At the time, I didn't question it. Now it made my stomach churn. The next morning, I drove to First Horizon Bank. Tom Bennett, the regional VP, had been my friend for nearly 2 decades. We'd played golf together more times than I could count. "I need you to flag every joint account," I told him. Tom's eyes narrowed. "Everything okay?" "Not exactly," I said. "I'm doing some estate restructuring. I want security holds on every shared account, all lines of credit, and anything that Celeste or Colin might have touched." He didn't ask questions. He didn't need to. By noon, the holds were active, which meant by 12:10 my phone would ring. Sure enough, 12:13 p.m., Celeste. Matthew, what's going on? My card got declined at lunch. The bank says there's a hold on the account. I kept my voice calm. Must be an error. I'll speak to Tom. But I couldn't even pay the bill. I'm sitting here with 3 other board members. Do you know how embarrassing this is? I almost felt bad. Almost. She had spent years taking for granted the comfort I provided. Now, for the first time, she felt what it was like to be exposed, vulnerable, dependent. She thought I was reacting emotionally. She had no idea I was laying the groundwork. While Celeste scrambled to regain access, Colin was in full-blown panic. At 3:45 p.m., Donovan called. He tried to pull money from 4 different accounts. Failed each time. Did he make any calls? 6, Donovan said. 2 to his bank, 1 to Lena's trust account rep, 3 to Celeste. He was unraveling, which meant soon they'd make their move. It was nearly 7:00 p.m. when my daughter called. Dad? Lena's voice was cautious. Can we talk? Of course, everything okay? She hesitated. I'm not sure. We agreed to meet the next morning at Monroe Builders HQ. She brought coffee. Her shoulders were tense, her posture careful, like she was bracing for impact. She sat across from my desk, arms folded. I need to ask something, and I need you to be honest. I nodded, silent. Is something going on between you and Mom? She's been off lately, avoiding questions. Yesterday, she told me she couldn't access the joint account. She told you that? She said the bank froze her out and claimed you did something to restrict her access. I watched her carefully. Lena was no fool. She'd spent 6 years studying psychology, another 3 in family therapy, and had always been sharp at spotting manipulation. She's also been asking a lot of questions about the business, Lena continued. And so has Colin. That was it. I stood, walked to my safe and took out the backup phone. I tapped the screen and hit play. It only took 40 seconds for her to realize what she was hearing. Colin's voice, calm and clinical. We'll position it as financial dependency. He's old-fashioned. No judge will blink. Celeste's laughter. He still thinks I love him. Lena didn't flinch. She listened to every second of it. 43 minutes of betrayal. When it ended, she sat back in silence. Then she whispered, How long have you known? A week. You've been, what? Gathering evidence? I nodded. She stood, pacing, fists clenched. I can't believe this. Colin, my husband. And Mom? I didn't want you dragged into it, I said softly. She looked at me and her eyes, so much like her mother's, burned with fury. You didn't drag me in. They did. The next morning, Lena filed for divorce. No drama, no yelling, just quiet resolve. She called it irreconcilable differences. But I knew what it really was. Betrayal poisoning everything she thought was real. It didn't take long for the cracks to spread. That same afternoon, Celeste marched into the office of a well-known divorce attorney in town. Linda Harrington, famous for her scorched earth tactics and sky-high fees. If Celeste wanted war, she'd hired the right general. By evening, Donovan had already relayed her plan. "She's going to file for emergency spousal support," he said, claiming financial abuse, intimidation, emotional manipulation. I almost laughed. She's trying to flip the script. Exactly. Colin's coaching her. They're using your account freezes as evidence of coercive behavior. What they didn't know, I had every bank action time-stamped and legally justified. And the audio recording that laid out their conspiracy? That was ready to go public if necessary. I wasn't just building a defense anymore. I was preparing a counterstrike. The next morning, Marcus and I finalized the legal transfers of ownership. The company's shares moved into a protective trust. The rental properties were shielded behind corporate structures, and the only account Celeste could still see contained $147, barely enough for lunch. At 11:26 a.m., I received a text from Tom Bennett. She tried to withdraw from the reserve line. Denied. Furious. At 1:04 p.m., Celeste called. I let it go to voicemail. At 2:32 p.m., Colin attempted a wire transfer from Lena's education fund, an account he no longer had access to. That flagged an alert, and by 3 o'clock my attorney, Gavin, was on the phone with the Financial Oversight Board filing a preliminary ethics complaint. Colin was officially under investigation. Meanwhile, Celeste's world began to close in. Her lunch card declined again. The club refused to renew her monthly account until the situation was resolved. Friends stopped returning calls, and word was spreading, quietly, professionally, but spreading nonetheless. People who had known me for years knew something was off, and they trusted me more than they trusted whispers from a woman who suddenly seemed desperate. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. I documented. By Saturday morning, Celeste was unraveling. Donovan called from the coffee shop across from Colin's law office. "She's here. Stormed in around 8:40. Looks like they're having it out." Through the window, he had a clear view of the 14th floor office. Inside, Celeste was pacing furiously. Colin stood near his desk, red-faced, motioning at documents. The ventilation shaft that ran between Colin's office and the neighboring accounting firm just happened to carry sound. That firm was one of Donovan's longtime clients. Through it, I listened to the words that removed any doubt about their intentions. "He knows," Celeste hissed. "Matthew knows everything. I couldn't even get gas this morning without my card declining." Colin wasn't calm anymore. His voice had lost its calculated tone. "That can't be a coincidence. He must have heard us at the house. The timing lines up too perfectly." "What do we do?" "We pivot. We file Monday. Accuse him of financial abuse. Say he's isolating you, controlling you through money." "But Matthew's never been controlling. He gave me everything." "Then we reframe it," Colin snapped. "His generosity becomes control. We make it emotional dependency. You're the victim of manipulation. We build a pattern." A silence followed. Then Celeste asked, "What about Lena?" "She won't back us. She's too smart." Colin's voice dropped lower. "Which is exactly what makes her useful. If she hesitates, even for a moment, that hesitation can be framed as proof that Matthews poisoned her against you. Celeste's voice cracked. You want to turn my own daughter into a weapon? Colin didn't answer. He didn't have to. That night, they finalized their false narrative. By Monday, they would accuse me of intimidation, emotional manipulation, and controlling behavior. They didn't know I already had my own evidence ready, signed, stamped, and backed by timestamps and witness statements. Monday morning arrived with rain. The courthouse steps glistened as I walked into the family division of the county building. Celeste stood by her lawyer, clutching a tissue, dressed in a muted gray outfit meant to evoke modesty and fragility. She didn't make eye contact. Colin was nowhere to be seen, likely waiting for his bar hearing scheduled later that week. Inside, Judge Elaine Rourke presided. Sharp eyes, no patience for theatrics. Celeste's attorney began. Your Honor, my client seeks emergency spousal support and a protection order due to ongoing financial and emotional abuse. Judge Rourke raised an eyebrow. Go on. Celeste took the stand. Her voice trembled, just enough. He's been cutting off access to our shared accounts, monitoring my purchases, threatening to leave me with nothing. It's controlling. He's weaponizing money. I said nothing. Gavin, my lawyer, waited until she finished. Then he stood, calm, composed. Your Honor, he said, we'd like to submit Exhibit A, an audio file recorded 6 days ago. It contains a conversation between Mrs. Monroe and her son-in-law, Colin Reeves, in which they discuss a coordinated plan to strip Mr. Monroe of his assets through legal manipulation. The courtroom went still. Judge Rourke nodded. Proceed. We played the tape. Every word rang out. Colin. He still thinks she loves him. Celeste. It's almost sad how much he trusts me. Colin. We file in August, claim dependency, go for spousal support. Celeste's face drained of color. When the recording ended, Judge Rourke stared at her for a long, uncomfortable beat. Mrs. Monroe, do you have a response to this? Celeste's attorney looked like she wanted to vanish. Celeste opened her mouth, then closed it. Her silence spoke volumes. Petition denied, the judge said flatly. This court will not reward deception. Furthermore, I'm referring this matter to the district attorney for review under potential fraud and perjury statutes. Gavin leaned over and whispered, Checkmate. The fallout was immediate. Within 72 hours, Colin's bar hearing escalated from ethics review to disbarment proceedings. The financial records, combined with his attempts to misappropriate Lena's education fund, were more than enough. He lost his license by the end of the week. Gone was the rising star of local litigation. In his place stood a disgraced former attorney with mounting legal fees and zero credibility. Celeste fared no better. Her emergency petitions collapsed. Her social standing evaporated. Friends she had brunched with for years stopped replying. The country club politely informed her that her membership was under review. She never went back. Lena, meanwhile, moved forward with grace and resolve. She filed for divorce without fanfare. Her statement was simple. My marriage was based on deception. I'm reclaiming my life. She started seeing a therapist, Began writing articles on financial betrayal in family systems. Launched a counseling group for women blindsided by spousal manipulation. She told me she wanted to build something good out of something terrible. I believed her. I still do. As for me, I kept working. Every morning I woke up, laced my boots, and headed to the job site. Monroe Builders weathered the storm. If anything, the scandal drew more loyalty. Clients stood by me. Subcontractors respected the quiet way I handled everything. No gossip, no breakdown. Just truth, strategy, and patience. Celeste moved in with a cousin out of state. Last I heard, she was working part-time at a boutique that sells luxury handbags, the kind she used to buy with my credit card without blinking. Now she organizes them for other people. Colin disappeared from town. Rumor has it he's working legal research for a private firm in Nebraska under a different name. It fits. He always did prefer fiction over fact.